Alright guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to make your use versus availability table that you have due for one of the pre-labs. So in the last video we extracted the National Land Cover data set using our MCP that we made in GME, and we basically arrived at a National Land Cover data set that is a reflection of your MCP. So now what you want to do is you want to take the data that are in that file and pull them out. Basically those data that tell you how much of each cover type are within this particular polygon. So to do that, what you do is you right click and you're going to open attribute table. What you'll see here is something that has row ID, value, and as I said in the last video, these are your different cover types. In order to figure out what these are, you're going to need to Google search 2011 NLCD code, and it will tell you what each of these numbers represent, a different, what cover type each of those numbers represent. But for now, I'm going to show you is how to convert this into a text file that you can open up in Excel. So you're going to click on that drop-down menu in the upper left-hand corner, and you go down to Export. Click on that. All records, and you're going to click on this Browse button. And what you want to do is change the title so that it actually makes sense, and you're going to save it as a text file. Okay, so you can see here that I have done a few of these already, but for the purpose of showing you guys actually how to do this, we'll just do it again. So since this is the different cover types that make up our minimum convex polygon, we're going to call this availability because these are the different cover types that are actually available to you as the organism moving through the landscape. So we'll call it availability, and we're saving it as a text file. Our address is okay. No, you don't want to add it to the current map. Wouldn't give you anything because it's just a data file. Now what we'll do is we will go and open that file and bring it into Excel. And you can use the import function on this. I don't know how many of you have used this, but it's a really nice tool for importing different kinds of files like text files or CSV files. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to Open Other Workbooks. Scroll down here. Computer. That's what it is. Browse. And then you're going to browse to the folder where you saved your file. Mine is on the desktop. And so it says all Excel files. What we want to do is make sure that we're showing text files here, because otherwise your file is not going to show up. So there it is, availability. Click open. And it's going to run through a series of questions and make sure it's formatting the data the proper way. So this is a delimited file. So make sure delimit is checked. Click next. It's not tab delimited, but it's comma delimited. So once that's done, click finish. It'll open up the file. You can delete this row ID because there's no information in it anyways. For this count, I'm going to change it to avail CNT for count, so that when we combine this with our use data, we'll know which is which. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. Save as. Let's save it in this folder. And I'm actually going to save this as a CSV file because eventually we're going to bring this into R, and R needs to have CSV files. It can't use it can use text files, but it can't use XLSX files. So we'll go ahead and save that. Alright, we have our availability data. We'll go ahead and minimize that. Now what we want to do is pull out our use data. In order to do that, what we need is to find out what is underneath each one of these individual points, because that suggests that we were there actually using that habitat type in some capacity, or that cover type in some capacity. So we're going to use extract values to points to do that. So you pull that tool up, input point features. That's going to be the point feature, our .shp points. So Barini points 2. These are the points that we used to make our MCP as well. Input raster is going to be our extracted raster. And then again, you want to change the location of where you have this. So we will call this extract points 2. We don't want to interpolate values, and we don't want to append all input raster attributes. So that should do it. Click OK. Alright, now this is completed. We'll go ahead and close that. And you see that it brought up this, it entered this new file, extract points 2. So what you do is essentially what we did with the MCP extract file that we did. We go to Open Attribute Table, and you can see this is what we have here. So you can see that the raster value here is, it shows you what each point, for each point it shows you the raster value that it falls on. And we're going to bring this into Excel and summarize the data. So we'll go ahead and do that. So again, as we did before, we want to export this file. All records. Make sure you're in the right folder. You want to rename this. We're going to rename it Use. And again, we're not going to save it as a DBF file. We want to save it as a text file. Click No. We'll go ahead and close this. We'll minimize this as well. And we'll bring Excel back up. And File. I'm going to say New. Open, rather. And then we're going to navigate to where that file is located. So we have Use. Again, it's showing that we have we're looking for text files. Say Open. And it's going to go through that those series of questions again. So it's delimited. Again, it's comma delimited. You're going to go ahead and click Finish. Alright. So this is the file that we're looking for. So this is a lot of data, and one of the ways to really kind of pull out exactly what we need is we want to summarize this. Okay, so what we're going to do to summarize these data is we're going to use a pivot table. So in order to use a pivot table, you're going to say Insert, Pivot Table. And then you're going to select Table or Range. What we want to do is actually select just our raster value column. So there's that. And then you're going to put it in a new worksheet. So click OK. And what we want to do is we want to, you'll see this over on the right hand side, it'll say raster value under pivot table fields. You're going to take that and you're going to drag it down to rows. So you can see these are our rows, and then what we're going to do is we're going to drag that into values. This will summarize the number of rows for each cover type. So now you see we have this really nice table. It makes it a lot quicker and simpler. So what we'll do is we'll highlight these. We're going to copy and paste those into our availability. Control V. There we go. And the reason that I copied both, you'll see here, is that you want to make sure that each row in your use file lines up with each row in your count file. So you can see here that 11, 21, 22, 23, kind of far down, all lines up, but once we get here, we're missing a couple cover types in our actual use file. So what we do is we'll drag those down. We'll type 42. Whoops. Zero. And then 43, we didn't have any data. 0. All right. So we have, and we can delete this column now. So now that we have these data, what we want to do is create proportions. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a sum row at the very bottom. And then to get the sum, you type sum, highlight the whole column, and then hit enter. And this is the total number of pixels encompassed in our MCP. We'll do the same thing here. And these are the total number of use points that we have. Now what we'll do is we'll create proportions. So we go and we can call this something that identifies that it's going to be proportions. So we're going to take, again, you have to make sure that you line this up. You don't want to have your availability proportions be reflecting your use proportions, so make sure that you do this the proper way. And you're going to divide it by your sum. However, one of the ways that might make this a little bit easier is if you just drag this down, you'll see that, oh, I'm not getting any results. It's because when you drag it down, it's going to move both of these cells down one, so you're dividing this cell by this empty cell, so that's why you have an invalid number here. In order to kind of lock this in, what you want to do is use the $sign. In order to lock the column and the row in on this particular cell, we're going to put a $sign in front of the B and in front of the 17. So we'll lock that down, and what we can do is we can just drag this down, and there we go. So this gives us the proportions of all of our different cover types that are available to us. Now we want to do the same exact thing for our use data. There we go. So now that we have this, we can eventually compare our use versus our availability. But in order to actually analyze this and save this as a file that we can use in R, we want to actually, this seems a little tedious, but it's kind of an important thing to do. I typically will copy and paste this. I think I used the wrong again, so Control C. And then you want to go down and click Paste Values here. So we can go ahead and delete these, and there we go, we're good to go. So now we're going to save this as a new file. So File, Save As. Now we get back to your folder there. And then I already have one that I created that's the same data, so I'm not going to create a new one, but you'll change it to reflect use avail. And you want it to be formatted exactly this way, because the way I have the R script written up, it depends on you having names the way that I formatted them. Otherwise, it won't be able to perform the analysis at all, because it won't be able to identify the file name or the column names or anything. So, all right. Alright, that's it guys. In the next video I'll show you how to actually do the analysis.